Emma heard the wolves before she heard the man screaming. She'd been checking her trap lines in the frozen woods, the same ritual she performed alone for 3 winters since her father died. At 19, she lived in a cabin so remote that traders only came twice a year, and loneliness had become as familiar as the cold. But that sound, those desperate shouts mixing with snarls, sent her running toward danger instead of away from it. She found him surrounded by 4 gray wolves, his horse dead, his leg bleeding, his rifle empty. He was swinging a branch like a club, keeping them at bay but barely. Emma didn't think. She raised her own rifle and fired twice into the air. The wolves scattered, and the cowboy collapsed into the snow. She rushed to him, this stranger with dark hair and terrified blue eyes, and saw the gash on his thigh pumping blood into the white ground. "Can you walk?" she demanded, already tearing strips from her coat. He shook his head, teeth chattering. Emma was small, barely 5 feet tall, but 3 years alone had made her strong in ways that mattered. She bound his leg tight, got her shoulder under his arm, and half carried, half dragged him the mile back to her cabin. Before we continue, tell me in the comments which country you're watching this from. I love knowing how far these wilderness stories travel across the world. She spent 3 days keeping him alive. The wound festered, and fever took him to places where he called out for his mother and someone named Catherine. Emma sat beside him through delirious nights, changing bandages, forcing broth between his cracked lips, and talking to him even though he couldn't hear. She told him about her father, about the loneliness that felt like drowning sometimes, about the mountains she loved and feared in equal measure. She told him things she'd never said aloud because saying them to an unconscious stranger felt safer than keeping them locked inside forever. On the 4th morning, he opened his eyes. "You're real," he whispered, staring at her like she was something impossible. "I thought you were a dream." "An angel!" Emma laughed, embarrassed, suddenly aware of how wild she must look with her tangled blonde hair and worn clothes. "Just Emma, and you're in my cabin because wolves were about to make you dinner." His name was Cole Brennan, and he'd been riding to Montana when the wolves attacked. He stayed a week, healing, and Emma discovered what it meant to have another voice in her small world. He helped her chop wood despite his injury, told her stories about cattle drives and cities she'd never see, and looked at her like she was something more than the lonely girl who'd saved him. If this story is touching your heart right now, hit that like button to help it reach others. When his leg healed enough to travel, Emma packed him supplies and tried to ignore the ache in her chest. This was how it had to be. People didn't stay in places this remote, this harsh. Cole saddled the horse she'd lent him, then turned to her with an expression she couldn't read. "Come with me," he said simply. Emma stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "What?" "Come with me to Montana. I have a ranch there, inherited from my uncle. It's big and empty, and I've been running it alone for 2 years. I need help." "A partner?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Emma, you saved my life. But these past days, talking to you, learning who you are, you've done something harder. You've reminded me what it feels like to not be alone. You don't know me?" she whispered, afraid to hope. "I'm nobody. Just a girl who lives in the woods." Cole took her rough, work-worn hands in his. "You're the bravest person I've ever met. You're strong and kind, and you didn't hesitate when someone needed help. I'm not offering charity, Emma. I'm offering partnership. And maybe, if you'll let me, something more." 6 months later, they married in a small Montana church, Emma wearing a blue dress that still smelled of mountain pine. Cole's ranch became theirs, and Emma discovered she'd been wrong about loneliness. It hadn't been about the isolation of the mountains. It had been about not having someone who saw her, truly saw her, and chose to stay. People said it was a strange romance, the lonely girl and the cowboy she'd rescued. But Emma and Cole knew better. Sometimes fate puts you in the right place at the right moment. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to help a stranger, you end up saving yourself. If this story reminds you that courage and kindness can lead to unexpected love, then subscribe to this channel and share it with someone who needs hope today. Because your act of bravery might not just save someone's life, it might change your own forever. Hit that subscribe button, and let's keep these stories of courage and unexpected love alive together.